Guys, we recently received a big update to Stormgate in Early Access Update 0.0.2. And I think it would be awesome to look at the patch notes. Once again, Monk did a wonderful job. I've already read through these. I think that the patch addresses some big concerns. I think that there's still a few things that I would like to see changed. And then I really have been enjoying the explanation of the patch notes from Monk, who is in charge of the balance updates and things like that. So we'll read through this whole thing together, and I'll give you guys my input where I think the direction of the game is going off of this, how I think this affects the meta, and then what I think they should be, doing. So, welcome to Stormgate Early Access, now in version 0.0.2. We're excited to roll out our second update since releasing into Early Access, and we've got a lot to cover. We're addressing some important bug fixes, and also including a new balance update. As we did with our first update, which came just a few days after our Early Access preview, we're sharing insight into the strategic thinking behind these changes direct from the desk of our lead competitive designer, Kevin Monk Dong. Raise your dongers, everybody. Get ready for another insider peek at how we're continuing to evolve the core gameplay of Stormgate. So this is how to update it. Okay, bug fixes. Improve the co-op hero selection UI to better convey that all heroes are playable for free up to level 5. I haven't actually looked at this. Do have the game up. Okay, so yeah, you can just click on anyone. That's cool. That is cool. Neat. All right. Fixed an issue in late game co-op matches where units could become invulnerable. I have seen this. I actually experienced this. I played co-op like day 2 of the early access, and this happened to me. Fix some crashes in campaign missions when playing with DX12. Okay, we've removed Infested Crater from the map pool due to ongoing performance issues. I think that was a 2v2 map, which apparently there is a vibrant and thriving 2v2 customs community. So that's very cool to see. I've seen a lot of posts about it on the official Discord. Very interesting stuff. All right, balance notes. So this is the stuff that we care about for 1v1. General. Creeps generally grant 25% less bounty across the board. Oh, good. Slime-based bounty decreased from 40 to 30. Ooze from 40-40 to 30-30. Shadow Demon from 80 to 60. Shadow Mastiff from 40 to 30. Bruisers 80 to 60. Cleavers from 40 to 30. Piper is from 40 Ethereum to 30 Ethereum. Major Galt from 80-40 to 60-30. Okay. Let's go through the rest of the camps here. Fix an issue where the Shadow Mastiff was doing more damage than intended to air units. Should be doing 5 down from 6. This is... People were noticing this super hard. Legit, their air units were dying. I think there may still be some other bug here. I haven't investigated it fully, though, but it seems like Shadow Mastiffs deal crazy damage to air units. But this is good that they've addressed this. Let's make me bigger. I'm important. How much to donate to put on the hat? Any amount of money, $1, or 10,000 shinies, which is my channel points. Health camp active healing amount decreased from 8 per second to 4 per second. Okay, speed camp active speed and bonus decreased from 30 to 20. All right. So let's talk about creep camps. Okay, we got the 10K. We'll do it. Now we have our full power activated here. Okay. Creep camps were way too powerful. The money they were giving was causing people to delay expansions until literally every creep camp on the map was dead at times, or at minimum delaying it until the first few were dead, because it was more effective and more income to create units instead than creating bases. So this is just a general theme in RTS as well, right? Do you want to increase your infrastructure, your macro, or do you want to increase your map presence and potentially winning the game with that? So I know that there's a lot of veteran RTS players that are playing Stormgate, but there's a lot of RTS noobs as well, people who are maybe new to the genre, haven't played as much. That's a big decision point, right? When to expand in a game. And in a game like what I'm coming from, StarCraft 2, expanding has been essentially figured out to the point where in competitive pro games, if an expansion hasn't been taken by a certain time, you can infer some kind of build that they might be going for. Because it's just been figured out so hard. Especially the natural. So we call the first expansion, right, the natural expansion. And then your third, your fourth, your fifth, etc., etc. So this was a huge impact to how quickly were people taking their naturals. In some games that were going 7 to 8 minutes long, people were staying on one base that whole time, which is a bit too long to be able to reliably stay in the game and have income being generated because of the creep camps. So this is a big juggling act for them where they need to decide, we want to still make the creep camps attractive for people to use. We don't want to completely take them off the board. We don't want them to be worthless because we want people to have map objectives that they can go and take. And if their opponent is being extremely defensive, you should be able to take an advantage by going around and killing camps. You should be able to, if you have higher APM, if you have more, you know, maybe a cleaner build, etc., you should be able to take an advantage by getting 1 to 2 creep camps in there. But the opposite was happening, where it was just like the whole game was about taking these camps. So I think taking the bounty down is a really good idea. I don't know if 25% is enough, to be honest with you. I have to see. So essentially a 25% decrease. So the big ones that people were going for in the beginning of the game were the health and speed camps. Those were giving 200 luminite each. So you could basically kill one of those and then expand almost completely off of that. You needed a very small amount of money to expand afterwards. So those are now only going to give you 150. So they give you less than half of what you need to expand for Infernal. All of these numbers are different depending on what faction you're playing. So I'm seeing this in the lens of Infernal, where it takes you 350 luminite to expand plus an imp. So that's the 400. It takes Vanguard 400, and then I actually don't know how much collection arrays are. I can't remember. Generally, this is good, though, and I hope that this opens up more play for expand first types of builds, or like currently expanding immediately and not making an iron vault or any sort of like barracks structure was just like putting you so far behind because creep camps were so important. And I think it's good in a way to have divergent play where maybe by taking an earlier expansion, you give up some short-term economy, but then it should also affect late-game economy. Like, you should be able to have it. I should be able to, if I don't do anything, and I make a base immediately, as fast as I possibly can, and I survive for the next 4 minutes, I should be... I say should. In theory, the way that my brain wants this to work is that I should be ahead. I should be ahead because I have more workers. And currently, with the way that creep camps are structured, that's just not the case. You're going to be behind. You're going to be behind. So, I don't know. We'll have to see how this evolves here, because I think that the strength of the creep camps really punishes builds that don't start creeping as soon as possible. So, we'll see. And I don't like when you're shoehorned into only doing one strategy, and there's just no room for any other strategy to be possible. But we'll see. We'll see how this goes. In general, I hope this encourages people to try expanding at least faster, because playing versus one base versus one base is kind of boring, and it's not very interesting stuff. Okay, Shadow Mastiff change is good. This thing, I've lost more Flayed Dragons to the Shadow Mastiffs than I would care to acknowledge, so I'm not going to acknowledge that. Health Camp, active healing decreased from 8 to 4 per second, and Speed Camp bonus down 33%. So a 50% reduction in the active healing bonus from the health camp. That's huge. And the speed camp bonus decrease. I think both of these changes are very good. And again, this really makes me happy to see that Monk has addressed this and that Frost Giant has addressed this, because losing your health camp to your opponent was so punishing if they were going for any kind of all-in, if there was a health camp near your main or your natural. It was so punishing because if they take a fight in the health camp and you don't, maybe even if you're up 1 to 2 units, a lot of early game units are more melee focused, at least for Vanguard and Infernals. We don't have as many ranged units typically. We usually lean on Lancer, Brute, and Scouts a bit more. It was just impossible. Like, they would take this, and then also, obviously, vector rushes were taking huge advantage from this. Moving their vectors out, healing them back up very quickly, and then just jumping them back in as soon as possible. And this just gives you now more time, and makes it maybe possible for you to take a fight in the health camp. I wouldn't mind, and I think that, actually, this might be a good change, if per active level of the camp, this increased by 2 or 1 or whatever, because it goes up to 5. So maybe not 1, like back up to 8, because I think 8 felt really good in the late game when you're like a huge army versus huge army. Having the health camp was like a big advantage, but it was also a big moment of like you have to be so far back. So if this increased like 1 per level back up to 8, like to a max of 8, that would be, I think, a really great change. But I think this in general is super solid, and I like this. And speed camp active bonus from 30 to 20. This is good too. You could just do some crazy stuff with the speed camp bonus, because you got 25 at level 1, getting 25% additional speed on units that might already be extremely quick is crazy. For 30 seconds, half a minute. You can go to your opponent's side of the map and back in 30 seconds. Like, I haven't timed it, but I feel confident you could make it pretty far. Okay, so good changes all around for creep camps. I'm wondering if this is not enough though, because if you take this with the previous change where they increased the creep camp bounty by 60%, then this is, I don't know if this is actually correct, but essentially they're now up 35%. So we'll see. We'll see. Very good stuff, though. I'm very happy that they're addressing creep camps, because right now it feels really strange. And this is also, creep camps also feel like a lose more mechanic, where if your early game mistakes are just so much more impactful that it feels so punishing. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're out on the map. You lose one of your Lancers to a creep camp on accident. Or, oh no, my opponent they caught me off guard, and now I've made what would be considered in like another RTS, or probably a relatively minor mistake. Losing maybe your like 1 to 2 early game units in Stormgate feels like that might just literally be GG. Because now you can't creep the map, and you're unable to compete. You're now just behind X amount of units, and like now my game is screwed. I'm not going to be able to take these camps. I'm not going to be able to get the resources. My opponent will be able to take everything on the map. Not only will they get every single global benefit, but now they're also going to get all of the resources from the map. And they're going to be able to expand faster. They're going to be able to tech faster. They're just going to have more than me. So creep camps are a very snowball mechanic if you make an early game mistake. And it feels pretty bad. And it encourages people, I think, it feels like coin flippy at times. Like, oh boy, I hope I don't just get attacked by 9 dogs here as I'm creeping my speed camp or something. It makes it very, very frustrating at times to deal with. So I think making creep camps advantageous to take, but not so like game making, is big. And perhaps in the early game, I don't know what they could do. There is some things you could do with creep camps, I think, to make it a little less punishing. You could... One idea I've seen, and I think is kind of cool, would be like making it so that your opponent can't take back a creep camp for like a full minute or something after you've taken it. because it makes it difficult if your army's not particularly extremely mobile, and maybe your opponent, like, if you're playing Lancers versus Brutes, and I can just split one Brute into a Fiend, I can just go back behind you and cap all your camps. And if you ever try to engage with the Lancer, I can just, like, run away with the Fiends, and I really don't have too much to worry about there. So back capping is a big deal, I think, especially for resource camps. Those are huge. I don't really care about necessarily the speed camps and all that other stuff, but the resource camps are massive for back capping. And again, if you don't have any map control, you kind of are just relying on your opponent to let you get a Fiend or something through. So very, very curious how creep camps go. I think this is a huge mechanic of their game. And this is really going to set the tone for how the game is played. I mean, literally, the creep camps controlled the meta in the previous patch, so. All right, Vanguard. Let's move on to the actual changes here. They didn't do too much from what I've seen to all the factions. Very shocking to not see the Scout here, by the way. And very curious to see what Monk's explanation for that is, because I thought for sure the Scout was going to be in this. Fixed a bug that prevented it from dealing bonus damage to air units correctly. Effective anti-air damage increased from 13 to 13 plus 13 versus light. So a 100% damage increase versus air units, specifically that are light. Are scythes light? Are those considered light units? Because I know Vanguard sometimes has a big problem fighting against scythes. For Infernal, this matters completely none, because our air units aren't really being made. There were certain changes that had to wait until the big September patch for computer toucher reasons. Oh, I see. Okay. I see. All right. Well, I don't know any of that stuff, so I'm just taking what I can. Interesting. So very curious to not see the Scout here. Because currently Vanguard versus Vanguard is completely dominated by that one unit. So we'll see if they have anything to say about that. Infernal's Nightfall Infestation now requires a greater shrine. Animus cost reduction from 25 to 20. This is huge. This is massive, actually. This was such a key part of the early game now for Infernals, to spend your first 25 energy on Nightfall Infestation on a 5 camp. You would literally not do the 5 camp until you had this, and then you would do it, and you'd have 5 additional Fiends. Now you have map pressure. I don't know if I love this change, especially since the Scout didn't get touched at all. I don't know. We'll have to see. It definitely, if... Well, okay, I don't mind this change. It is awkward now for your first, like, 40 energy for Infernal. It feels like there's not really much I should be doing with it, because, like, let's think about the top bar abilities for Infernal. So we have the Effigy, which is 5 Animus, and we have the Hellfire Resurgence. Those can now be done on tier 1. And those are 5 energy and 40 energy, respectively. Nightfall Infestation filled that really nice gap between the two and made way more sense to me to like use in the early game. It was so much better than the other two. Hellfire Resurgence is not bad, but waiting for 40 Animus is very odd to me, because that's like 3 minutes in the game. I shouldn't be doing anything with my Animus so that I can get 3 additional units. Huh. I don't love this, to be honest. I would have liked to see I would like to see something replace this, because if you're doing everything correctly, you shouldn't need to Effigy unless you're taking a fight with your opponent. If you have the micro, you don't need to Effigy versus creep camps, because you shouldn't lose anything. So now, I don't know if they're trying to encourage people to Effigy more aggressively in the early game, or if this is just going to cause people to not do anything with their Animus until they reach 40, or until they get a greater shrine. So, curious to see how this goes. The Effigy costing 5, it's about as cheap as they could make it, without making it, like, yeah, just free. And if it's free, I think it's too strong, because Shroud is genuinely very, very good. I like the idea of shrouding the map, but it is definitely not as important, I don't think, as like creeping the map was for Zerg. Okay. I'm curious to see how this changes stuff. Are people just not going to do anything with their energy until 40 to Hellfire Resurgence? Or are people going to actually start using effigies early game, like aggressively? I'm not sure. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. In general, while I think this change is needed, I feel it now puts your early game Animus in an awkward spot. Because you just have those two things, and they're situational, I think, for effigy and Hellfire Resurgence. So, interesting stuff. Imp, Flame on Ignition duration decreased from 1.5 to 1 second. Ignition duration. Is that the time it takes for them to actually light on fire? I think so. Which, in this case, that's quite good, because this was kind of hard to use. I'll be honest. Yeah, okay. This was difficult to use, but I also haven't tried using it very much, so that could just be on me. The fact that this is 25 Therium per ignition, and the fact that they explode after like 5 seconds no matter what, makes this a very, very hard ability to use properly. Because you are going to take losses, and potentially you could just get nothing out of this. Pretty sure they nerfed it from 1 to 1.5 previously too, so that's very strong. Well, I'm curious to see, does this now make it more usable? Because it was very hard to use. And I think very easy to avoid. You had a full set, so pretty much, think if Banelings had to morph in front of your army, it took them 1 second to morph, and then they got a small speed increase and could start running at you. You could just literally, like Terran would just run away every single time, right? So, yeah, curious on this one. We'll see. We'll see. My opinion is out on that one. I don't know yet. Gaunt. So this is a big one. This is a big change to this unit. Primary damage increased from 6 plus 3 versus light to 8 plus 2 versus light. So this is actually a just straight up damage increase to your primary damage. Secondary damage decreased from 2 plus 1 to 2 plus 0.5. This seems like a almost nothing change. Weapon period increased from 1 to 1.3. So there's the rub there. So obviously they have to change something. So now the Gaunt is going to deal more damage to its primary target, which means that Lancers aren't going to just take 1 damage a hit if they have the upgrade. Lancers would now take, I think it's just straight up they would take 3 damage a hit, right? Unless my math is super wrong here. Yeah, anyways, very interesting. I don't know what this change was about, though. Maybe to make it so that, well, we knew Hex and Miasma was going to be on here. Maybe to try to account for this. Gaunts didn't feel like they needed a buff, though. So I don't, and this is a buff. I mean, the weapon speed decrease definitely hits them, but if the damage compensation is the same, let's use our old calculator. So this is 6 DPS, 8. What is it divided by 1.3? Is that how this fucking works? This is 6.1. So it's actually a DPS increase. So yeah, slightly, very slightly, this is a DPS increase. Even more so if you're hitting light. Interesting. Okay. All right. Oh, no. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Huh. Hexen, miasma radius decreased from 5 to 4. This is, I think, the smallest change they could do to Hexen to make miasma more manageable. This makes sense. This does not disincentivize me from making less. In fact, it incentivizes me to make more. I don't think this matters except for at very high levels, though. Like, there is definitely counterplay to miasma. We've seen it. We've already watched pro players do it, too. I think for the general populace of Vanguard, miasma is fucking hard to deal with for people. It's just really difficult. And a lot of the Infernal's ability to kill bioballs relies on miasma. I really like using miasma. It's very fun. It's a very cool ability. And it's not just like deal instant damage to this area. It's more control oriented so that you're just trading more effectively. And now with the Gaunt change, you're going to be trading even more effectively than before. So that's very interesting. Okay. I mean, this is a 20% radius decrease. Okay. All right. We'll see if this really changes much. I don't feel like this addresses the core issue. I would have loved to see whatever that one unit Vanguard can make that can target out miasma casters. Maybe they needed some changes. I don't even know if Vanguard players know that they can make it. I'll be honest. I've not seen a Vanguard player make it, except for like in the top 10, apparently. People just focused on like Lancer Exo Medic. And they're like, this looks like the Terran army. And so they're just making the Terran army units. And it's like, well, no, there are actually other really great units that you should make. Atlases are fucking nuts. They're so good. And so are Vulcans are pretty good. And so are your the sky ship things that disable miasma, essentially. Okay, Magmadons. Magmadon can no longer stun each other with their trample ability. This is good. Right now in Infernal versus Infernal, Magmadons, it was RNG feeling who got the better trade with their mags. So this means now you know for sure how the Magmadons are going to interact. I wonder how this affects the push, though. If you don't have your trample up, or sorry, if they both have your trample up, do you just walk past each other? Now, you'll still deal damage to Magmadons, but they just won't get stunned. So I'm curious to see how this affects pushing. But in my mind, what this looks like is two Magmadons stomping past each other, running for the Gaunts. So more than ever, it is more important that you just move your Gaunts out of the way than it is for your Magmadons to get good stomps. So, okay. Weaver, anti-structure damage decrease from 10 to 7.5. It's a weird change to make to me. But I think Weaver drops were probably too strong. So this means that... How many hits does it take? 14 hits. So this increases the amount of hits to kill a structure by 4. So if you do the 2 Weaver drop, it's going to take 7 hits each as opposed to 5. So yeah, basically just straight up two more hits from both of them. All right. I mean, I think that's fair. I don't know that Vanguard has a great way to deal with this, other than just already having anti-air, or sorry, like structures in place already, or having your army nearby. So we need a 3 Weaver drop. I mean, you can 4 Weaver drop. If it's 14 hits, 4, 8, 12, it'll still take you 4 hits. Yeah, if you have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, it'll take you 5 hits. So it's 3, 5, and 7, because the 0.5 does not help enough. Anyways, all right, Celestials. So hoping for some changes here to them, because they have, I don't know, they're in such a weird spot. Arc ship supply decrease from 5 to 0, 7 to 0, 10 to 0 for the Arc Station and Arc Fortress. So they're Arc thingies, they're big building. Does not cost supply anymore, which I didn't even know that it did, to be honest with you. Less impactful than you might think. Celestials are weird. More news at 11. Yeah. Collection array health increase from 500 to 800. Flying mode on collection mode. Morph time decreased from 30 seconds to 20 seconds. Flying mode to collection mode. Okay, so picking up to putting back down. So if you're already flying around, you can come back down in 20 seconds instead of 30. Okay. This arc ship change only matters at literally max out supply, by the way. Since Celestials don't have a supply cap. So this seems like a very strange change, because I don't feel like Celestials... Well, they were having trouble at all stages of the game, basically. Their late game did not feel like it was too bad. And I feel like they didn't get to this point to really see. if this was good or bad. But I mean, it's only a buff, so I mean, that's good. I just don't know if it's addressing the right things. This is good for the collection array. 500 to 800. I mean, that's pretty significant. That means that the early game Shroudstone rush from Infernal is going to be way worse, and I don't think you're actually going to get collection arrays. The point, though, for this was not to kill it, but to force them to move, though. I almost wonder if Infernal just literally puts down a second Shroudstone. Like, instead of going meat farm Shroudstone, do you just go double Shroudstone in the main? I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. I mean, this is only good. This is only good, but I feel like the weakness for Celestial is being able to, from an Infernal standpoint, is being able to just defend those first two buildings. Vector, movement speed decreased from 6 to 5. Recall upgrade now increases movement speed of vectors by 30%. From 5 to 6.5. Okay. Early game movement, so this is basically the Vector cheese is, I think, dead now. Maybe not fully dead, but way worse for two reasons. One, movement speed is down quite a bit. And two, the health camp does not regenerate health as quickly. So that's a huge deal. So your vectors are going to heal 50% faster, and they will move slower. So, okay. The rush is gone, I feel like. I don't feel like people can now reliably do this. Scythe fixed an issue where it wasn't dealing correct damage to area units. It was previously dealing 7+7 instead of 12 versus 12. Damage versus ground units decreased from 8 to 6.6. 6+6. Heal 50% slower. Yeah, that's true. Huh. What is this for? Why? Why decrease the ground damage? Huh. Alright. I don't understand enough about the Scythe to really understand why this change happened, other than fixing this bug, obviously. This I don't get. This is just a straight up nerf to them. Going from 16 to 12 versus heavy units. What were they killing heavy units that were just so unstoppable for Scythes? What was happening with this? Does anybody know why this interaction got looked at? I mean, I guess Monk will explain it. We only have 25 minutes to the show match, so okay, we're at the end. Vulcans, maybe? I mean, why? Like, Vulcans can't even hit Scythes, though. So what's the point there? Saber, damage change from 52 plus 52 versus heavy to 60 plus 30 versus heavy. Area line damage increased from 25% of primary damage to 50% of primary damage. So buffing this and then buffing... So yeah, Sabers deal damage in a line. I don't know if you guys know that. I didn't. So this will now deal, instead of 25% of 52... Why do I keep closing my calculator, guys? 13 damage, it's going to deal 30. So it's just 100% increase of that line damage. Dealing way less damage to heavy, though. Way less. Like, going from 104 versus heavy to 90. So 14 less damage. That's big. But its basic damage is better. Okay. I see Sabers so infrequently that I just have no idea if this change matters. Archangel, bonus health provided by Avatar increased from 250 to 400. Okay, so that's its ability it can do. Can no longer target units with Meteor Strike. Instead, it must target a location. This fixes an issue where if you target a unit, it will deal damage to the original location of the unit. I see. So I don't know if this is how they're going to leave it, but this seems fine. I mean, I don't think people were having too hard of a time doing Meteor Strikes. Supposed to go against the Vanguard Blimp thing? Well, again, the Saber can only hit ground units, so... Alright, let's read through this here. Developer Balance Commentary 0.0.2. Hey, Gators from the Storm. Time for everyone's favorite thing, a balance update. Woo! Before we begin, we'd like to congratulate Parting for winning the EWC Stormgate Invitational. Let's go! Tournament last week over some very solid competitors. Grassroots tournaments have been buzzing as well. Isanic and MSRM taking home victories in the TANC. Captain Alex claimed the title as Czech Stars 4, and Snoxstar emerged from victorious from the Goblin Cluckfest Open #1. My face when some person had to write Goblin Cluckfest in an official balance update. That's us, boys. Thank you for shouting this out. That's so nice of them. We're in the official patch notes. We did it! Special shout out to Mixie, who finished second in 2 consecutive TANCs. Yo, bro, you're right here. Look, we're here. We're famous. We're in history. We are in history. We did it. Celebrations aside, I'd like to take a moment to share some insights about the team's thinking on the current balance of the game and explain the rationale behind this patch. Let's begin with the hottest topic, creeps. I'm a professional commentator. You're the clucker. Yeah, you are. Creep snowballing. In our last patch, we made an adjustment that lowered the overall difficulty of taking creeps while increasing the bounties they granted. The aim was to speed up the early game by injecting additional resources into the economy and encouraging players to build large early game armies to help contest the map. In these respects, the changes were highly successful, and we're pleased with how the early game pacing has evolved. However, these changes have also brought 2 significant downsides. When does the show match start? In about 20 minutes. So I'm trying to get through the rest of this. 20 minutes. I'm already in Stormgate. I'm ready to go. I just need to get the map. I just need to get the lobby. We're all solid. 2 significant downsides. Creeping has become more rewarding than expanding, which isn't our goal. Ideally, both strategies should be equally viable. A unit's strength is now tied to its effectiveness at creeping. Units that excel at creeping, such as scouts, gaunts, vectors, and seraphims, are able to dominate the map and snowball the game. I mean, we're making brutes for this. Fiends. This should be fiends, not gaunts. I don't think gaunts are... I mean, they're fine. They're not bad, but they're definitely not like fiends and... Whatever. It's fine. Overall, this is correct, but I think these units are maybe a little weird. Seraphims are good. I've only seen Grimby make them, though. Anyways, to address this, we're implementing a change that will hopefully strike a balance between patch 0.0.0 and 0.1. Creeps now grant 25% less bounty across the board. Additionally, we're making the following adjustments to specific camps to reduce the win more potential. Yeah, we talked about this exactly. I think this is a great change, but I would like to see this gradually step up. That would be cool. We're taking a cautious approach to these creep changes to stabilize the game, but we have several ideas for future implementation. We'd love to hear your feedback on them. Maintain current creep power levels, but make them take longer to kill and reduce their damage output. Further differentiate creep camps by varying their starting power levels. Ooh, maybe. So long as this isn't RNG, that would be maybe all right. Prevent non-resource creep camps from being able to be recaptured by the opposing team. This could be kind of cool. That would actually be very cool. Adjust the rate at which resource bounties increase as creep camps level. This could be fine, but the early game, it's all the base level stuff. I could see nerfing it at level 1 and then increasing it like significantly as time goes on. That could be cool. That's an idea, actually. Make the level 1 camp give a significantly less resources, like go from 200 and 0.0.1 to 100, like a 50% reduction. And then as it scales up, get it back to 1,000. So your start is lower, but your end goal is the same. Last patch, when you creep the health camp with 1 Hexen taking, 2 Gaunts Hexen survive 1 on more or less 40% HP. Now it almost dies. Oh, okay. Well, then I'm just wrong. I'm just wrong, baby. I guess the double Iron Vault thing was really so that you could just Nightfall Infestation quickly. All right, matchups. According to our internal metrics, Infernals are currently the leading race with a 52% win rate in non-mirror matches, followed by Vanguard at 50, Celestials at 48. This is actually shockingly even. This is a shift from the previous patch where Celestials had 53, Infernals were 50, and Vanguard were 47. Although, well, yeah. Overall win rates seem reasonable at first glance. The matchup-specific win rates remain heavily skewed. Vanguard is better than Infernal, which is better than Celestial, which is better than Vanguard. Really? Celestial is winning versus Vanguard? Is that true? I did not think this was the case. This seems... I thought it would be like Celestial better than Vanguard. Really? Wow. Okay. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Before diving deeper into each matchup, I want to touch on our approach for this patch. Given the significant impact creeps are having on gameplay, we expect the game to enter an unpredictable state after the upcoming creep changes. For this reason, we're focusing on releasing a patch quickly to adjust creeps and make some adjustments that we feel confident about. After we've seen the effects on the metagame, we'll be better positioned to make a more informed decision and changes in the upcoming balance patch planned in September, which is only like 6 days away, which will include additional bug fixes, code implementations. Now let's get to the specifics for each matchup. You get stomped versus Celestial as Vanguard. How about now? How much time until the tournament? 17 minutes. You can just keep asking. It's fine. Vanguard versus Infernal. Despite changes in the last patch, Infernals continue to hold a strong early game advantage, while Vanguard tends to gain the upper hand at about 10 minutes into the game. That's crazy, because I feel like I cannot beat Vanguard until 10 minutes. I feel like I cannot beat them until I have Miasma. I am just playing this apparently fucking so wrong. The primary shift between patches seems to be at the highest level of play, where Infernal players are having great success. I'm the highest level of play! Oh my god! We're high-level players! I'm a high-level player! Those who use it effectively are seeing very high win rates against Vanguard. Although we believe the metagame is not fully developed to reveal which faction is favored at the top level, our interpretation of the matchup data is that the average player finds the Infernal versus Vanguard matchup difficult to navigate intuitively. We plan to make small changes to address following issues. Hell yeah, you are. Thanks, man. Early game advantage is too strong. Nightfall infested too. Just make dogs. The dog meta is so good for Vanguard right now. I feel like we just lose now if they make dogs, right? Like, what do we do? How do we take the map? I don't know. Maybe Sinoxtar, who's here in the chat, can tell me. What do we do now? If they make dogs, what do I do? How am I supposed to win? How am I supposed to creep? Now requires Greater Shrine. Yeah. One of the Infernal's major power spikes the ability to summon 5 fiends from the first Nightfall Infestation, making it challenging for opponents to compete on the map with this timing. Removing this ability to tier 2 while also buffing it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, but I'm concerned with how I don't lose to scouts. You're not supposed to creep. I mean, maybe, man. Just take like 2 camps and then stay home. Vanguard infantry balls are too powerful, and countering them requires more skill than using them. Flame On is their answer for this. This is fucking infinitely harder to use than Miasma, by the way. I think. We're adjusting Flame On to provide a more dynamic counter to Vanguard infantry, or returning the ignition to the start of the Elephant beta patch. If the highest level of play is winning, I don't think this really addresses this. Like, lower level players are not using, like, Flame On Imps or Miasma. If they're not using Miasma, I don't think they're using Imps. Maybe. I don't know. Gaunt, primary damage. Yeah, this is a much more direct, like, I can kill the Lancers, now I can get to the to the Exos. While many refer to the Vanguard Exo balls, we believe Infantry Ball is a more accurate term, since Lancers contribute as much. Yeah, I agree. Good job, Monk. Infernal struggled to break through the Lancer wall to get the vulnerable Exos. These changes will improve the Gaunt's performance against Lancers while reducing their power in other situations. With this adjustment, the Gaunt will deal 20... Thank you for doing this math for me. Thank God. Deal 26% more damage to Lancers. Trigger kinetic redirection 30% less often. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Deal 8% less damage to non-light, non-Lancer units. Deal 30% less damage to light units. So it's harder for Exos to die to Gaunts. I guess this is a fine change. Yeah, okay. Issue 3. Hexen Miasma is too strong at its current tech level and is oppressive on our current maps. Radius decrease. I don't think this is enough. I still think Miasma is going to be incredible. Thank you. This ability is too effective at forcing Vanguard players into checkmate situations, particularly due to its AoE size and narrow corridors. We plan to revisit this ability for future patches. It is enough? Okay, well. I was expecting a radius increase or decrease and maybe a slight Hexen resource change, like how much it costs, but okay. Weavers are killing command posts faster than intended. What do you mean? Faster than intended? You can't not believe that this was the intended rate, though. I think this is a weird way to word this. This is very directly exactly how long you think it would take. But maybe they just didn't think like, oh, you drop and then it's just dead. Okay. All right. I mean, this is fine. I don't think I've literally ever done this versus Vanguard, but I guess maybe I should. Vanguard versus Celestials. This matchup is currently dominated by aggressive early game openers like Proxy, Vector, and Seraphim. We believe this exacerbated by the amount of resources provided by creeps, though these strategies would still be problematic even without creeps. Okay, Vector. This is reduced, and again, the health camp reduction is big for the Vector. This change-up should help the early game scouts compete with Vectors while still allowing Vectors to function as effective anti-air later in the game. We are monitoring the position of the Ascension Chamber on the tech tree as it could impact this dynamic. Okay. Hornet. Bug fix should make Hornet stronger to counter Seraphims. Will be closely... Okay. All right. All right. I dig it. I dig it. Scythe. This change. Players have expressed that scythes are generally too strong. As an Infernal player, I have literally never seen this unit. I don't think anyone's made this against me. Particularly against Vanguard, which lacks a solid anti-light, anti-ground unit. While the new Hornets will help counter scythes, we want the Vanguard's ground options to be more competitive while sharpening the scythe's role. Okay. This matchup, we expect to change drastically after these changes, and our hope is that we're able to receive a better matchup data with how the standard macro game plays after these changes. Okay. Infernal versus Celestials. While Celestials have received much needed late game buffs in the last patch, they lost their ability to secure early game wins through rushes and creepy run buys, both of which were rightfully nerfed. As a result, Infernal remains favored in this matchup, but the advantage is now more consistent across all stages of the game, not just the late game. We believe the main reasons for this are Celestials lose mid-game creep wars due to Gaunt excelling at both creeping and frontal engagements. So the creep and Gaunt change affect this. Celestials struggle in straight-up fights against Infernals for a few reasons. Lack of reliable frontline, inability to handle constant spawning fiends. Both true. Both very true. We're making the following adjustments to help change these issues. Fix a bug that... Okay, so Scythe to air units. Incorrect damage to air units. Okay, this doesn't even... Okay, I don't know if this is misplaced, because this is not related to this. No? Am I wrong? Am I crazy? Saber. Very curious to see if Sabers happen. This will allow Sabers to more effectively deal with fiends spawned from Gaunts. I don't know what the AoE... I need to see this in a game. Maybe I'll see this in Larimbo versus Captain Alex in 10 minutes. Who knows? Wouldn't that be cool? Pro thinking on the angle of making it more risky to keep a flayed okay, I see. Okay, see, my small brain could not think of that. I'm like, I don't make air units. I forget the flayed dragon is an air unit. Archangel, bonus health increase from Avatar from 250 to 4. Archangel's actually so good, and I don't know why people... I mean, I do know why, because it's hard to get to, but, like, this unit fucking slaps, bro. So it's more important to target fire with sabers. I don't know what their default AI attacks, and I hope it's not the closest unit, because it should be farther away units, yes. Because if you just attack the frontline thing with your saber, it's worthless. You're not getting the huge benefit of this thing right here. Oh shit, you still get the plus 15? Oh my god, I didn't even realize this. Do I have heavy units? What are my heavy units? Are brutes heavy? I don't know. Meteor strike, yeah, locations. Brute mags. Okay. 45 damage versus mags. Okay, interesting. Brutes are fat, they gotta be heavy. Hey man, the Weaver is a light unit, dog, okay? Don't tell me anything. This change gives Celestials a more reliable late game frontline, but does not fully address the issue of Magmadons being able to push Archangels. We plan to revisit this to prevent resilient units from being pushed in a future patch. Yeah, this is a weird interaction. But I feel like if it's just a complete, like, stop for Magmadons, it also makes Magmadons feel bad, so we'll see. Celestial's max out army is weaker than that of Infernals. I don't think I've literally ever seen this happen. I don't think I've ever seen this happen, so I could not tell you. I've never seen a 300-300. It's correct, though. I mean, fair. Fair if it is. Like, totally fair, but I don't think... I've not seen this situation, so I don't feel like I can comment on it. In addition to the unit change, I'm going to give Celestials more supply flexibility in late-game situations to encourage... Like, again, guys, this legitimately only matters at completely maxed out. So, if you're not reaching this point, this change means nothing to you. But hopefully you can get there more consistently due to the above changes. We plan to further rebalance Celestial supply costs in future patches. Something we could foresee happening is massed Arc ships and Arc fortresses in maxed out late game situations. So this would be awesome. Just make Arc ships. All right, I think this is the last one. We have to go quick. We only have 7 minutes. Oh my God, I'm so hungry. I'm actually going to start eating during this. I thought I was going to have a few minutes to eat. See, now you get to listen to me eat a cookie. Don't worry. Nothing good is expecting. Wow. The confidence from Larimbo is shattering. Alright. Magmadons are super dominant in this matchup. A common piece of feedback is that the way Magmadons interrupt each other's trample feels very random, so we're implementing the following change. Agree. Magmadons can no longer stun each other. Well, that's one way to fix it. Weavers are intended to counter Magmadons. We're planning an update that will allow Weaver to move over units again. Thank God. Thank fuck, dude. However, we've also received concerns that even with this change, Weavers may still struggle to counter Magmadons effectively due to their low mobility. Yeah, and the fact that they pull in... If you auto-cast Lash, they pull in before they start stomping. But I guess the idea is you pull in the mags and then kill them before they can start stomping. So. Collection Array vulnerability. Collection Arrays are a bit more vulnerable to harassment than we'd like. Most notable is... I mean, this is notable with every single Infernal player making a Shroud Stone in their main for the past 2 weeks. And then Dive Bomb Shadow Flayers. 500 to 800. So it will take 2 more Shadow Flyers. Okay, I mean, that's fair. And then the fly mode is easier. Looking forward, though we aren't making any changes to directly impact the following issues, here's a few more we'd like to keep a close eye on. Vanguard versus Vanguards. This current matchup is dominated by mass scout openings, a trend that has been amplified by the increased strength of creeps. Scouts offer significant harassment and creeping potential, while Lancers don't counter them effectively enough, especially in comparison to how easily Exos defeat Lancers. We plan to make adjustments to how this interaction between these units in the future, but first we want to observe how this matchup evolves after creep changes and see... I do think even with this, I wish that they would have done something in the scout. Just to disincentivize a little bit. Celestials versus Celestial. The main issue we see in this matchup is that players are often locked into Argent versus Argent battles for too long, particularly on smaller maps. I believe this is due to the Argents being too strong without upgrades and Kree no longer serving as an effective counter. Since Argents are a core unit of the faction, we like to wait for the early game meta to stabilize across all... This is a little... I wish I would have seen some changes for these, though.
Hey, any
I don't
friend
mind.
of this guy is a friend of John Gobblecott of Necro Gobblecott.
I think we're in the fuck shit up meta right now, man. Fuck it up, boys. Make scouts deal 0 damage to scouts. I don't know. I don't know. Alright. Don't actually do that. I was joking. Kree are currently in a peculiar situation across all 3 matchups. We received feedback indicating they feel underpowered, though we believe the situation is more nuanced. Against Vanguard, the Kree can still be extremely strong at key moments, but their effectiveness seems to wane as armies grow larger. Thanks for the follow, by the way. When facing Infernals, opinions on their performance vary, though there's a general agreement that they struggle as frontline units, particularly when Magmadons enter the field. Big true. Against Celestials, Kree are intended to counter Argents in the mid-game, but they're not fulfilling this role as intended. Given the complexities surrounding this, we're holding off until we have more data. Well, at least they're telling us. I am down with that. and more. Major points in boosting certain underperforming units in the upcoming patch, specifically Graven. I've seen this unit once. Spriggan, I've accidentally made this unit once. And the Aeon Gate, I have actually not seen a single person use this. So I'm glad that they have their eyes on this too. During this period, we'll be closely monitoring tournament results and gameplay data to assess the impact of these adjustments. And then, yeah, the REL Stormgate tournament was yesterday. So that's awesome. Fucking A. My 2-minute recap of the changes, because we have a show match to check out, guys. Here's my 2-minute take on the changes. I think that they have hit the nail on the head as far as all the things that they should be looking at. But I don't know that they've done enough to actually address these changes, specifically for the Scout and for Celestials. I think Infernal versus Vanguard is going to feel a lot better for the Vanguard player. I am a little bit worried about the early game because of this change right here as an Infernal player. It feels like it might be too oppressive depending on the strategy that Vanguard goes for, but we'll have to wait and see how it shakes out. I think that the infantry ball is getting definitely dealt with more, and I like the change to the Gaunt. I don't know that it needed the change, but I do like that some of the power is being taken away from the Hexen and being distributed to other units in the army. Makes it much more interesting to me. Other big changes, other things I would like to see. The Weaver padding change is my #1 request. I legit, this unit is such a key part, I think, to Infernals, and nobody is making it currently because it's just so awkward to use and so hard to use. I'm curious to see how Infernal versus Infernal handles, and I think that Vanguard versus Vanguard is still going to be dogs all the way down. I would be very happy to be proven wrong. And I don't know how Celestial versus Infernal is going to look now. So we'll see. We'll see. But guys, that is it for this review of the patch notes. If you can think of anything that I missed, definitely tell me down below. And make sure to check out our Twitch stream if you're watching this on YouTube right now.